Hello, and welcome to something which I didn't think I was going to be recording at any point today. Actually, I didn't think I was going to be recording at all. It's something I've been toying away with for a while and thinking about, but, well, someone actually put out a question on Twitter, someone who I follow and I think is actually very, very cool on Twitter, who tweets as the General Board, on Navy General Board on Twitter, tweeted out an armor scheme and said, I've been kicking around an idea for a collaboration among some of the historians. We discussed the pros, cons of various battleship armor schemes. Why not go a step further and see what each person would choose for their own dreadnought? Well, I haven't got a schematic design, but I have got a starting point. Because one of the things I keep considering and have kept working on is the G3 and N3 designs. Now, as many of you know, I'm not a fan of the gun layout on the G3. I honestly don't think that's a surprise to anyone that me and the G3 are never going to be friends when it comes to the positioning of the gun, the third turret. The fact that it's just slotted in there. And it can't fire aft, it can't fire forward. It's also positioned so that the turret base is next to the superstructure, so it's got this radius of action, but it can't fire off because there's secondary superstructure there and all the secondary guns, so it has to fire out there, and there's only so far. I just don't like it. I don't like it. I can understand all the engineering reasons they do it for, and they are all excellent engineering reasons. But whoever designed it had obviously never ever thought about actually fighting a real battle, or didn't actually think about combat out of, I don't know, some kind of weird Jutland/Trafalgar fighting scenario. Because there is no way that turret is worth carrying. Honestly, save yourself some money, some time, some weight, and get rid of the turret for all the good it'll do. And before we carry on, I see this is why people end up with the French end up going with double quadruple turret design forward, because that makes more sense than having that third triple sitting there. It just doesn't make sense. So, with this in mind, and with not really liking the N3 design battleships either, because as much as I like the 18-inch gun, and I do think HMS Agincourt was probably going to be an 18-inch armed Queen Elizabeth class, that is definitely my working assumption, and if anyone else writes the book about it before I manage to, I am going to be so annoyed with you. But I'm currently working on a paper for it. It's one of my side projects, working on a journal article paper for that slowly. But I have this great tool at my disposal, Alton Admiral Dreadnoughts, and it's really, really cool, and it allows me to do these things. That's the Spreadshirt store. Some of those designs have been taken off Spreadshirt because Spreadshirt decided they weren't good enough, and I've got to do a bit of fixing on them. So I will do, but they should be back soon. Most of them are still there. Now, please note, I'm using Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts. They are lovely people. They have very kindly given me permission to use their things in educational videos, and I realize this is probably stretching the limit of educational because it is a personal design and it's not anything to real life. But I'm going to try and make it as educational as possible so that they don't feel like I'm basically insulting them, because they are wonderful people and they allow me to do this. They don't give me any funding. I had to buy my own copy of the game, and I would always do that because the moment, well, I get sent books to review, and they're given to me for free, yes, but that's for me to review the books, and otherwise I'd have to pay a lot of money for those books. And as much as you're very kind and generous with patrons and YouTube, the difference between how much that covers most of my second-hand books I buy. Most new books I've been getting lately when I get a brand new book, they are mostly being sent to me to review because they cost a lot. This is the one problem I have with naval history at the moment with the books, which is one of the reasons why I like doing the YouTube videos, because they are free to access. Yes, there are adverts, but they're free to access. If you choose to support it by going to Patreon or by being a subscriber or doing super chats, that's wonderful, and thank you for doing that. It's really, really important to work on history. But the thing is, you don't have to pay anything to get into it. And the point is with the books is that if I review them and you can see my review for free, before you make that investment of 20, 30 quid or 90 to 100 quid in some of those books or scenarios, you have an idea what you're going to get. You have an idea what you're paying your money for. I didn't get this given this game for free. I paid it. I think it's worthwhile buying, but I bought it because ultimately something like this for my work is an amazing tool. You know, I get to design, which I can do with CAD, but what I can't do with CAD is test the displacements, test the operational maneuver at sea within a reasonable degree of accuracy, and blast living daylights out of an opponent. This is the tweet that started this discussion and actually got this to be published, because I sent a message responding going, well, I've got a presentation on my Dream 1920s Dreadnought. Would you like me to record and explain it? There were a few DMs about it. There was Benjamin Turan who tweeted back to me going, explain yourself, sir, and Navy General Board responded, they'd be honoured. And, well, I CC'd in General Ultimate, who are the Twitter handle for Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts, and so they should see what I'm doing, so hopefully no one will be upset. So here is my batch one. Now, I have to admit, I have done a design of this which has quadruple turrets. It's gorgeous. But it's massively overweight. Colossally overweight. It rankles in at somewhere in the region of 80,000 tons once I've built it all. And for a G3 style hull, which is what I'm going with for this design, that's overweight. And I admit this. You'll also notice that I have used 6-inch turrets. I've used a new form superstructure. And the reason I've used a new form superstructure is because when I was designing it in 1928, I was having to fit various things to it. And honestly, that superstructure just made more sense for that. Plus, it's going to sound strange, you can't find a G3 / Nelson Rodney, Nelrod style superstructure. So you're sort of stuck with, if you're going for anything similarity, is the Queen Anne's Mansion's look. That is a treble 16-inch gun. And you'll also notice from this side, the guns are located where they are useful. Okay? Please note, you can turn this gun 360 degrees round without hitting anything. You can do the same with this one. And you can do the same with the aft one. They can all do full 360 rotations, which means if you're in a melee style action, i.e. you are in a Falklands Islands battle or a Battle of Capes, a Battle of Sirte or something like that, your gun, if it's pointing this way and you suddenly got a target off that way, does not have to go through, or, you know, if it's pointing back that way and your target's off there, doesn't have to go through all that rotation. It can go, hello. There is an advantage to this. It does make the ship longer. It does mean you're not quite as densely packed with your heavy weaponry, but you get more out of the heavy weapon you do carry, and as the more discussions I've had over the years about things like the Prince of Wales loss, etc., and those things, having a quadruple turret in your hull does create a barrier in your ship, and a very firm part, which, if you're hit by torpedoes, can stop the energy being, how do I put this, put through the hull, transmitted through the hull and dissipated. So it tends to get the energy more fixed in your aft or forward if it hits there, and can cause, therefore, more damage to your forward and aft. Whereas if the energy can dissipate more through the wider structure, you can actually ride it out better. It's one of those weird things, but basically it's the dissipation of the energy through the structure. So having them positioned like this gives you an advantage. That's the R view. Now you'll notice for secondaries I have gone for 6-inch guns. I have. In turrets. Twins in all of them. I like twin 6-inch turrets. They are round. They are suitable to the time. There's an E-class cruiser which has twin 6s, and I would have literally just taken them off. I built the same turrets I was using for the cruisers, and I would have just gone boom, boom, boom through. If I could get the 6-inch guns, if I could do any personal design, if I was building time, I'd use the same design as you basically get to use for the counties, which allows their 8-inch guns to go up to 70 degrees. Because I'd love a 6-inch which could go up to 70 degrees. Think of a 6-inch gun for AA able to go up to 70 degrees. Dual purpose 6-inch. You know, if you start building that in the 1920s, you've got something useful. Might avoid the whole Dido thing. Oh. Starboard side view. Look at that ship. And this is another thing I do like about Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts. You don't just design the ship in a blank space. You're designing in a dockyard. And it feels pretty cool. You'll notice this does have twin funnels. It's got a lot of horsepower. It really does. And from the front, it looks suitably menacing was what I was going for. Suitably menacing. Yes, forward, you are facing off against 8 6-inch guns, 6 16-inch guns, and a whole lot of muscle. In Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts, this one is displaced at 75,852 tons. But you have to remember, that's designed based around the idea of a 22,953 kilometer range at 28 knots, which is not real-world realistic. Top speed, a more realistic system, we have top speed of 28 knots, but a range of roughly 14,816 kilometers at 18 knots, which takes you down to roughly 70,000 tons. Now, length 260, beam 33 meters, draft 10 meters. Now, I then worked it out in nautical miles, and I worked out what the distance is, and you can see this has got fully reinforced bulkheads, full torpedo defense, maximum anti-flood, and triple bottom hulls. So this is not something which is going to be easy to sink by any stretch of the imagination. It's got radar, RDF, sonar, ring CV rangefinders, crop armor, maximum barnet thickness. It is powerful and as strong as I can make it, and it has everything I need in there. It also has full autoloader, electro-hydraulic turrets, auxiliary engines to keep everything running, 144,000 shaft horsepower, 4 shafts and geared turbines, and 24 Yarrow boilers. You can go through its armament. It is well armed. It is everything organized. There's just one problem. It has everything. It has radar. It has sonar. And this is 1928. But I'm fitting it with those stuff, even because as part of the game, they're necessary because my opponent's probably going to have them. Again, with the autoloader and the electro-hydraulic turrets, they're everything. But they add weight. They do add weight, and that's part of the gameplay. But they're the maximum available. So, this is what I would build on the game. But what would I build in reality if I was building in roughly the early 1920s? I so like that design. It looks so good. It really does look good. Well, meet HMS Duke of York, batch 2 of my design phase. And I should note that the forward turrets went out and have gone back in. If you look at the next design, you'll notice they popped back in. And the reason is I kept playing around their position, working out their range of fires. Again, that's one of the great things about this program is it allows you to look at their radius of fire. And the thing is, if I position them there, they have a wider range of fire and they can technically fire aft. And I can't do that with them further back, but it technically gives me the ability to have 12 6-inch guns covering my rear. It was something to play around with. But as you can see, they're still there. They're there now. In this picture, in the next picture, they're back in the previous place. Because again, it just looked odd in the end. And I decided I didn't like it. But no. Roughly the same number of crew. Maybe a little bit less, but roughly the same number of crew. And this one I've done to be sort of reflect more likely real world statistics. So it's 61,332 tons. And by the way, according to Ultimate Admiral Dreadnought, that's overweight. But because they rate this hull up to 61,000 tons, which I would broadly speaking agree with. But as I'm pointing this out, considering that they're saying that weight based on it being able to do 15,615 kilometers at 28 knots, rather than a more realistic result of top speed of 28 knots, but a range of 14,816 kilometers at 18 knots. My reckoning is that's roughly equivalent to, well, considering the amount of extra fuel you burn going at maximum speed versus your cruising speed, I would say 56 to 57,000 tons full. So still heavier slightly than a G3, but not so much heavier I'm going to be upset about it or think it's unrealistic. In real life, as said, probably 8,000 nautical miles or 14,816 kilometers at 18 knots, which is still not 4 knots faster than the cruising speeds of HMS Hood, which was 8,000 nautical miles at 14 knots, and double the range of the Renown class, which is 4,000 nautical miles at 18 knots. So basically what I did was I took the cruising speed of the Renowns and the cruising range of Hood, and I said, that's my requirement. I need to be able to go as fast as the Renowns for as far a distance as Hood. But I'm not designing a battle cruiser. This is a battleship. Again, fully reinforced bulkheads, a full torpedo defense, the greatest they provide, maximum anti-flood, and triple bottom hulls. All allowed at this time, according to the system of Ultimate Dreadnoughts, and I would agree. But I haven't fitted radar, and I haven't fitted sonar. Partially because I don't see the point in fitting sonar to a battleship, other than it give you an idea of where torpedoes are coming from at you. This has conventional loader and hydraulic turrets, not the electro-hydraulic ones. It does still have auxiliary engines, and it still has spacious accommodation. It's slower than Hood or Renowns, but it uses pretty much the same powertrain as the Hood. So again, for both designs, I'm quite happy with that. And both designs are producing generally a very similar ship. The difference is the accoutrements I've added in, which does affect the overall weight. And this is something we have to think about. The battleships do grow heavier. I have gone for the British style of virtually there's no conning tower there. This game, again, it really likes its conning towers. And if you go full British style of just deleting the conning tower, it doesn't really like you. So you have to put something in there, but as you can see, I've taken it down to 6 inches, so it's really not much point in in actual battleship terms, and probably just the waste of the weight. Treble 16-inch guns again. 8 twin 6-inch guns again. So it's got 9 16-inch and 16 6-inch. And 21 quadruple 2-inch guns pom-poms again. I do like those pom-poms. I do like them. Well, they use a surprisingly large amount of crew. And I've kept the main belt. The main belt has gone down, compared to the previous one. The previous one, the main belt is 16 inches. On this one, the main belt is 14.8. So I've gone down by 1.2 inches. I've also gone down forebelt, aft belt, mid deck. Everything's gone down to the recommended amounts. The turrets, though, have stayed the same. They've got the same level of armor. And that's to basically get me in at the point at which it's... How'd I put it? This puppy is fully tricked out for World War II with all the latest accoutrements and pretty much, honestly, has the weight that you would expect for that, and I have designed it as so. This one is honestly more realistic. But if I took this one out to play in the game at this point, I'm not sure how well it would go across in terms of securing victory. I think it'd be good. But I think it'd be good in the more realistic battle phase, because I think if you do, one of the things I again like about Dreadnoughts is you can make it realistic, so you can make it task groups versus task groups. You can have cruisers, destroyers, battleships involved. You can have battleship a la Battleship, mano at mano, but then if you're designing your ship for it, well, why have secondary guns? Why have pom-poms? Why have anything apart from the biggest / fastest firing heavy battleship guns you can get, which again probably settles in about the 16-inch guns. At which point I would probably, if that's when the quadruple 16-inch, probably 4 turrets, quadruples would appear, and that's what I'd be designing around. But for a general purpose battleship, for a G3 equivalent, I don't consider this a bad thing to put in. And I consider this a successor to the Queen Elizabeth class. And I think that is the problem we get with history. And the problem we get in sort of reality. The Queen Elizabeth's, if I was ever going to actually describe it, I would go, the Orion class are super dreadnoughts. That's the 13.5 dreadnoughts are called the super dreadnoughts. I would call the Queen Elizabeth class the first of the fast battleships, the super duper dreadnoughts. But the thing is, they pull their punch. As I've been over before, the technology doesn't get developed as fully as it could do. They could have gone for small tube boilers, which would have got them extra horsepower and would have got them to 28 knots. And a Queen Elizabeth class doing 28 knots, that is a problem for everyone. That's why this one has a top speed of 28 knots. Because, again, I'm looking at this, if I was designing a fast battleship, and that's what I'm aiming for. That's what you really need. The G3, N3, I always think are, to an extent, victims of the still mental definition of battlecruiser to do the world's commerce role and battleship to fight the battles. And the fast battleship is really when you realize, well, when in the rare occurrence you need to fight the battles, you need the battleship in terms of the big, rare occurrence of actually having battle group on battle group. But vast majority of the time, what you need is something more akin to a battle cruiser. So you want something which is sort of a hybrid between the two. A fast battleship. And I often argue that a fast battleship is a battle cruiser that's got more armor. That's what they've taken a battle cruiser and they've gone, well, we want the concept of the mobility and the speed,
but we don't want to call it a battle cruiser because those got sunk at Jutland where they weren't used properly. So we're going to call it a fast battleship. And again, the argument goes, well, if the Montanas had been built, what would the Iowas have really been? Would they have been the battle cruisers? Mm-hmm. But the thing is, it's like the G3s. If they'd been built, would they have been called battle cruisers or fast battleships by the time World War II rocks around? This thing is unashamedly. It's a early 1920s fast battleship. And built within the limits of the game, which are actually quite good. Honestly, you could make it a lot. This is one of those things. This game is very easy to use. It's very straightforward. You can teach yourself its nuances in about a couple of hours. It can take months to learn its higher, more complicated structures, but what you learn immediately will teach you a lot, and you can quickly get good enough to use it, to become an expert in it. I don't know. Probably going to take a lifetime, but it's a lot of fun to use, and a lot of fun to test these ships out. You can't launch a ship if so, but wait, it won't let you do that. So I have to admit, the only one I've actually combat tested these designs is this one. I did it in a task group. I'm not going to show videos or pictures of it because I am still working out how to record videos and edit them into things. And I'm not. I think I'm pushing it enough with these slides. I'm not sure if I'm would do the video for Ultimate Dreadnoughts. Admiral Dreadnoughts would object me to doing the video, but I did it with a combat group of 3 town class cruisers, roughly, slightly modified, and a flotilla of destroyers. You can't get aircraft carriers on it. It's annoying, but probably it also makes sense. So we'd call it sort of a Mediterranean style battle. It was against the Rage Marina, because again, I think they're the best navy, pound for pound, at the beginning of World War II. And the moment you have the Japanese involved and you don't have carriers there, it just sends their entire doctrine weird, and they don't look like the Japanese to me. But the Italians, it sort of fits with. And the Italians had about a single battleship again. They had some heavy cruisers, a couple of heavy cruisers, and 4 of their really, really light cruisers, the ones which tend to get beaten up by Trouble-class destroyers. So I thought it was a reasonable approximation. You have a flotilla of tribal destroyers, you have a division and a bit of light cruisers, and you have a battleship versus a battleship, a division of heavy cruisers, and some light cruisers. The other reality you get in this is that they keep fighting. They fight till they sink, basically. They don't stop. Until they run out of ammunition, or that they don't run out of ammunition or anything. That's it. They keep fighting. This did well. The 6-inch guns were more than enough to keep away the light cruisers. They didn't want to get anywhere near this ship. Not having torpedo launchers would have been interesting, but it worked out for me okay. I won. I was a bit worried at one point because the Italian heavy cruisers mauled my light cruisers at close range. But ultimately, all my light cruisers got through thanks to torpedoes. And the Italian heavy cruisers didn't. And the Italian battleship, it was a slogging match, but it worked out. And I consider it a good test. I went away happy with that design, and I went away happy with the force structure. So, I hope you found this interesting. Thank you again to everyone who's made me 7,000 subscribers. please keep sharing, liking, and subscribing if you do, because as some of you who probably haven't watched this before, but some of you who have watched it before know, there's currently a bet going in my family as to whether I get to 13,000 subscribers by December 31st. That isn't worrying me so much because I'm fairly sure I'm not going to get there. So, you know, you don't get worried about family bragging rights you're going to lose if you know you're going to lose it. But there are side bets in my family, and let's put it this way: I'm not sure what the stakes of the side bets are, but I do know if I don't get to 8,000, my mum loses, and that's probably going to be bad for me. Yes, I am 34 years old, but let's all be honest here. Disappointing our mothers or making them lose bets, if you really don't care about that, I worry about you as a person. You know, it's not a case of being dominant. It's not a case of being a mummy's boy or anything like that. It's more a case of, do you want to be dealing with the after effects of losing that bet for the rest of your life, or rather the rest of their lives, or possibly the rest of your life, depending on how upset they are or what the results are? You don't. Anyway, more ultimately, bets all to one side. This is a good ship. As you can see, this one, I have to admit, to make it lighter, it's slightly shorter. It's basically it's the same length overall, but I've shortened the armor belt by bringing the guns closer together. So whilst the B turret can do a full 360, A turret can't, and and X turret, or Y turret, X turret, I always think of it, can't. But I don't consider that a bad compromise. It's not my perfect ship, but based on the hull and everything available, it's good. And it's got a lot of space. There are a lot of things you could add into that ship to improve it as time went on, and you could put in some really decent engines. And plus 144,000 shaft horsepower, 4 shafts, and geared turbines. I just realized, joy of dyslexia and of spell check not picking up. I put 4 shafts, 4 geared turbines. Literally, it works, but that is supposed to be FOUR. Let's see, did I do them both? Yeah, I did! Oh, this is because this is just for my personal view, so no one else has read it. I checked it. Anyway, take care, thank you, and enjoy.